Hey everybody, welcome back to Sounds Like a Drum, Kane's independent media production. Today, we are going on a possibly myth-busting quest to look at the concept of tuning your batter on your toms for feel, and then just using the reso to manipulate the tone. We've talked about a lot of prescriptions and pseudoscience around getting a good sound out of your toms, and this is a concept that's been on a lot of message boards and in a lot of conversations. It's not a thing that I ever really thought about in terms of a prescription for me for getting a certain kind of sound or a certain kind of feel, so I suspected that it wasn't really all it was cracked up to be, and that definitely turned out to be the case today. The idea behind this, if this is new to you as a viewer, is you take your tom, you put the batter head on, tune it to where you like the feel of hitting it. Then you tune your reso to sculpt the tone, sculpt the sustain, generally figure out if it's going to be a drier sound or a meatier sound or whatever you might be looking for. Now, the problem is right there in the description, the idea that the batter feel is going to stay the same if you change drastically or even a little the tension on the reso head. The fact of the matter is that neither of these heads are existing in a vacuum, and as you're going to see, they interact constantly. They work together to make the sound of the whole drum. I tuned the batters on these toms to where they felt good to me. I threw the resos on and I tuned them a little bit underneath. We're going for a tighter batter and a looser reso. The idea here being more articulation, a little less sustain, not so thick of a sound. Here we go. Now this is nice because the feel is a little stiff on top. I can do rolls and stuff, and the dynamics are present. The articulation is present through quiet playing and louder playing. Now, according to this prescription, if I want to get a better, thicker, fuller sound out of the drum and retain the feel I have in the batters, all I need to do is tune up the reso head. But the fact is, if I want this feel and I want that meatier sound, I can't actually leave the batter alone because the feel of the batter is going to change if I change the reso. I know this seems crazy because we're not hitting the resonant head, but every part of the drum is interacting with every strike. So if we want to maintain a relationship between the two heads that's going to give us the feel we're after, we can't discount changing the tuning on one of the heads. It's also worth noting that if I were to leave the batter alone and pitch up the reso head, the entire pitch of the drums is going to go up significantly, which is, in addition to screwing up the feel, going to take me out of the range that I want to use the drums in the first place. And if I settled on that range because it's working for me, I can't have that. Now, for the second example here, everything is tuned differently on both of the toms. The batters are different, the resos are different. The consistent thing is that I went for the same feel, also in the same general tuning range, because again, I want this sound. We're not being hyper-specific about pitch matching because again, this is a feel concept that we're looking for here. In this instance, the resos have come up, the batters have come down, and now we're in a more traditional situation where the reso is higher than the tuning of the batter. Now, trying to telegraph what a drum feels like to hit over video is tricky business, but the main takeaway here is that for me, the player, sitting at these drums with this now inverted tuning scheme, they feel virtually identical to the first ones, with the difference being there's a lot more tone and a lot more resonance. Now, what that means for me as a player is the first tuning is a little more conducive to me playing quieter and more busy things, not so much because of feel, but because there's literally less sustain in the drums, so those parts will come out easier. And on the flip side with this tuning, there's a lot more tone when you hit them really, really hard, so this tuning makes me want to hit a little bit harder, but at the same time, they do give me the same physical playing experience of digging into the drums in terms of the feel of the batter heads, and this would not be possible if we had not manipulated the tuning of both. Anytime that somebody gives you a prescription for the right way to tune a drum on the drum set versus a possible way that you could explore to tune it, we have to look at that because every drum is different, every player is different, every pair of sticks is different, and all of these things translate into our ability to get a good sound out of the drums, and also, as we're talking about today, a good feel that makes us want to hit them, helps us make the music that we're making, and works with the style that we're in. Now, since it is possible to achieve very similar feels both with higher batter, lower reso, and lower batter, higher reso, that means that we can then make choices about what we need the drums to give us. It's not about sacrificing tone or projection or articulation or any of those things. There's a huge variety of options along the way that can give us the thing that we're looking for without feeling like we're losing something by adjusting the way that we're tuning. Depending on the style that I'm playing, I may out of the gate choose a higher batter, lower reso, or vice versa, again, depending on what I'm looking for. But at this point, because we've worked with these drums a lot and gone through a lot of heads and experimented and just used our ears to find what we need sound-wise and our hands to find what we need feel-wise, we don't have to lose anything, even if they're drums and heads that we've never used before. As long as we know that we can explore and check it out, there's something in there that's going to work for every situation. Now, if all of this seems pretty straightforward or obvious, or maybe things that you're experimenting with and utilizing already, it is still also important to know that when we start to get stuck on an axiom like this, or even something as simple as what pitch this head is tuned to, or what a drum dial setting is, or what our favorite player tunes their rack tom to, we miss out on all of the gray area where there's a sound for us that doesn't belong to anybody else. And this means that if you're a person or a player who swears by having the batter tuned lower than the reso, this is a perfect opportunity for you to take a step back, consider the possibility that there might be something else in there that could be exciting and interesting and different for you, rather than being really, dogmatic to an idea and saying that nothing else can get in. At the end of the day, the thing that we need to keep in mind is that when we have a drum in front of us, if we stop and only consider one variable about that drum as if it's not going to change everything else that that drum is doing, we are already completely lost. Anytime you sit down at your snare drum and just consider the wires without the tuning, or sit at your bass drum and consider the muffling without considering the tension of the reso head on there, we are putting ourselves inside of a box that we're going to have a very hard time getting out of without really choosing to explore these things. And something as simple as knowing that A, the reso is going to affect the tonal behavior of the drum, and B, it's also going to affect the feel, so we can't discount the batter head tension when we're going after our feel and our sound. This is a wide open door that we can walk through and not be afraid of what it's going to show us. Just dive in and enjoy the process. We enjoy the process here of exploring these things with you and for you. And today, like every other day, we found unexpected things. We found things we loved, things that we hated. And that's the joy of what we do. Thanks so much for coming along on this with us today. I'm very curious if anyone out there has been adhering to this idea of leaving your batter at comfortable feel and adjusting the reso, because this is not something that I grew up with. I don't think Ben grew up with it either. And anything like this that feels like a prescription, we would love to hear about it, especially if it's been effective for you, since it was not particularly effective for us, and where it's taken you in terms of the sounds that you use and the music that you make. And always, please like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and please follow the link below to our Patreon. It's the best way to help us keep going with this stuff and make more videos and explore little things like this, bust myths, have crazy ideas, drink too much coffee. And yeah, we'll see you in the comments.